Welcome to Becoming Limitless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their brain and their body with biohacking. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate brain fog and upgrade your health so you can have more productivity, energy, and growth in your business. I'm your host, Tanessa Shears. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Becoming Limitless podcast. I hope you are having a great week so far. This episode today is going to be one that you can put in your back pocket and come back to time and time again. I use the biohacks and strategies that I'm going to be teaching you today on the regular. In fact, I actually just used one last night and it made such a difference. So if you've kind of been following along, I think this episode won't go live till August. I'm recording it in June. We actually got notice last night that we have 2 months left in our home before we get to pack up our life and start a new adventure. But that's a whole nother story. But what I wanted to share with you was that our landlord showed up at the door with the paperwork, the dreaded paperwork of we sold the house, you guys got to move, and my adrenaline, woo, it kicked on. You know that feeling like maybe you got attacked by somebody on the internet, you got in a fight with your partner, you almost got in a car accident but didn't. You know that like insane adrenaline rush that you feel? Yeah, I had that same thing going on and I felt like it was actually interesting. Like right after they left, my adrenaline was going so intensely that I was shivering and I wasn't even cold, but my adrenaline was going. It was actually that same adrenaline experience I've had after I gave birth to my second daughter, Tenley. I just remember shaking and I couldn't stop shaking and it's just the adrenaline, right? And it was so neat. About an hour after all of this happened, I went and looked at my Oura ring, right? So an Oura ring is my wearable tracker because I wanted to see what the stress was like on my body. And you could see my body was down and restored. We were watching a family movie together and all of a sudden there is this wild spike. My body went from restored through relaxed, through engaged to the peak of stress. And while I was feeling this and I was having those shakes, I actually had a tool in my back pocket that I'm going to be teaching you today that helped me go right back down into restored. I actually screenshotted the graph because I was like, this is so cool. Like, talk about science, right? Like when stuff just works. Because I feel that when it comes to overwhelm and anxiety and stress and especially those like in the moment intense stressors that can happen in our business, if like we go live for a launch and a link doesn't work, or we get, like I said, somebody mean in your DMs, those things really do set off a nervous system response. And what I don't want is to ever lose a day of work or lose a good night of sleep because my nervous system is totally jacked up from something like that. And I mean, overall, the breathwork hacks I'm going to teach you today aren't just to be used in that situation, but in a whole bunch. Because I think one of the interesting things is like, based on my experiences scrolling through Instagram, I follow a lot of like somatic healing accounts and like nervous system regulation Instagram accounts, like, because that's really the season I'm in right now, is regulating my nervous system. And so many of the solutions that are offered to us to help regulate our nervous system are like deep restorative yoga, take a bubble bath, go for a walk in nature. But I got to tell you, when my landlord walked out of my door, I wasn't like, I should probably do a restorative yoga class right now, right? Like that's not what our brains want to do. So what I want to teach you today are some things, and I want you to start understanding how we can combat anxiety and stress with our breathing. And then I also am going to be giving you that same breathing tactic that I used to completely calm my nervous system, where it was so jacked up that I was shivering in summer. It's June when I'm recording this, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's all about breathwork biohacks to combat anxiety and stress, because you stressed out, you don't sleep well, you don't function well, you can't stay productive, it affects your business, it affects your life. So we've got to have some tools in the back pocket. And what I really want you to walk away and get out of this episode today is to learn how to be able to use your breathing to shift the state in your brain and your body. Now, I'm going to say right up front, I am not a breathing expert. I am not like, this is not my area of complete expertise. I'm like calming the nervous system. It's something I'm working in. But having said that, what I'm going to be sharing with you is what is working for me real time. We've got a lot of change in our life coming right now. between leaving our home, long-term travel, it's another episode in the future, but there's so much changing like on a big level in our life right now that this is what I'm using to practice staying calm. So this is more of a practical thing that is based in science, right? We're going to teach you how I shift the state of my brain and body when I am super stressed out or stress is imminent in my life. I am anxious. I am feeling like I can't keep up. I'm feeling behind. I can feel that fight or flighty feeling happen. For me, it's like a quick tightening and a fluttering in the chest, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit of science first, because for me, understanding the why just A, makes it way more fun. And then B, it's like it really allows us to understand what's going on, right? Like, I don't know. That's how my brain works. So, okay, I'm going to take you back to what I learned in university, but I'm going to make it nice and simple. Because if you didn't know, like I have a degree, which I don't think I actually ever use it. This might be one of the times I use my degree. I have a degree in biomedical physiology and kinesiology. It's a bachelor's of science. And this stuff I learned in detail there. And so I'm going to share it with you because I think we should know this body that we spend so much of our life living in, all of our life living in, right? Okay, so when you breathe in, through your nose or through your mouth, the gas in the environment goes in through your nose or your mouth and into your lungs, right? And that gas is made up of a mixture. It's not just oxygen, right? There is nitrogen in it. There's carbon dioxide. There are other gases that we inhale. So we breathe in, and that air travels in through our lungs, and the oxygen in the air then reaches the bottom of the lungs. And in the bottom of the lungs, there are all of these little air sacs called alveoli. So think of them like tiny balloons. And when the air goes in there, it allows the air to diffuse through that and into the blood. Your blood then takes all of that oxygen and distributes it to wherever is needed. If you're exercising, it takes it to your muscles. If you're thinking, it takes it to your brain. I mean, anywhere you have muscles or cells that need oxygen, which is pretty much most of our cells, then that's how it gets it there. We have to breathe it in. The blood takes it there, right? And takes it off to the tissue. Now, inside of those cells, it uses oxygen to create energy. And one of the byproducts, so when that energy is created, carbon dioxide is what we call a byproduct, or kind of like a waste product, so to speak. And that carbon dioxide goes back into the blood, travels back up to our lungs, goes back through those tiny little air sacs, and we breathe out, right? So we breathe in and use the oxygen, and we turn it into energy, and then we breathe out, and the carbon dioxide crosses out through the lungs and out. So that's just a very simplified idea of it, right? So what does this have to do with this? Well, I first want you just to understand, you bring oxygen in to turn it into energy, waste product, carbon dioxide, all right? That's the base of it. Now, when we are at rest, so I'm maybe not right now because I'm recording a podcast, and you'd be surprised how much I talk with my hands, but maybe you're driving right now, or I don't know, folding laundry, something. If you're at rest right now and you're having a normal breathing pattern, you're breathing in and breathing out, the goal and the average is you want to be bringing in 6 liters of air into the lung every minute. Now, that stat on its own probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but what makes it more understandable is that 6 liters of air should be accomplished by taking about 12 shallow to medium breaths every single minute. So breathe in, out, that's 1. 6 liters of air should take about 12 breaths. But the problem is that most of us over breathe. What does over breathing mean? It means we take more breaths than we need to get in that amount of oxygen. So what this could look like is, instead of sitting there at rest and taking 12 breaths, you're actually taking between 15 to 18 breaths every minute just to get your body the amount of oxygen it needs, right? And what happens is you are excessively breathing in and excessively breathing out. Now remember, when we breathe out, the primary gas we are breathing out is carbon dioxide. That's that waste product, right? Well, when you breathe out carbon dioxide, it lowers the level in the blood. And I thought this was pretty cool. Like, before I learned about all this, I thought like, oh, we breathe when we don't have oxygen and that's what governs it. But that's actually not true. Did you know that waste product, carbon dioxide, that is what actually governs breathing in and breathing out, how frequently we do it, and all of that. Because when we get that carbon dioxide waste product building up inside of our bodies, it starts to set off all of these sensors to tell the brain, breathe. We need to breathe. You need to get this carbon dioxide out. You need to get more oxygen in. So carbon dioxide is kind of the sensor, right? But when we are over breathing, we are breathing out too much carbon dioxide and we are not getting enough oxygen into the brain. Okay. And what happens is this makes your brain hyper excitable. I mean, that sounds fun, right? Like a hyper excitable brain. It's not. When your brain is hyper excitable and it's not getting the oxygen it needs and there's too much carbon dioxide in your system, this can look like difficulty focusing. So maybe you are flitting between browser tabs. Maybe you're doing something and then all of a sudden you're on Facebook on your phone, or you got an Amazon tab open, or you were doing something and then all of a sudden your email popped open and you're diverted over to that, or you're doing something on your desk and your phone goes off. Like that feeling of being unable to focus and pay attention, right? Another symptom of a hyper excitable brain is anxiety. I don't know about you, but I have felt my fair share of anxiety over my life. I feel like it's actually a trait of many entrepreneurs because I feel that a lot of entrepreneurs do tend to be more type A or more analytical or more a perfectionist in nature. They maybe tend towards anxiety. And this is just in my experience and the clients I've worked with. But anxiety is not something that's uncommon to entrepreneurs or stress, right? So if we are over breathing, we breathe out too much, we're not getting enough oxygen to the brain, this is leading us to be anxious and lack of focus. And for me, anxiety leads to overwhelm. And when I can't get stuff done, and then my brain likes to start going into these catastrophic thinking cycles of like, oh my gosh, what if we're going to run behind? I'm not going to get through all this today, blah, 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 right? So what I want to teach you now are solutions to reduce over breathing. So remember, we defined over breathing as breathing too frequently to get the same amount of oxygen in. The ideal goal sits somewhere around 12 shallow to moderate breaths instead of the 15 to 18 we are usually taking. Now, it's really interesting if you have an Oura ring. And I believe some of the other devices do as well. If you have an Oura ring, it'll actually tell you what your resting breathing rate is at night. I'm just opening my app really quick to take a look. And you'll be able, if you have an Oura ring, to find this in your readiness tab. My resting breathing rate was 14.6 breaths each minute. So this tells me I may have a little room for improvement. And it's kind of neat. Like if you ever track your breathing rate, you'll notice that if you are stressed out and you go to sleep, your resting breathing rate will be higher, just like your resting heart rate. It's fascinating how many details about your body and your physiology that you can just see from an Oura ring. It's why I use it in my Becoming Limitless programs with my clients, right? Because we are able to directly see what's going on in the body when our bodies don't have like printouts being like, oh, yes, look at your breathing rate today, or your heart rate was high last night. Are you stressed? Did you eat too close to bed? Like we don't get that. And so what I teach my clients is to understand when they look at their data, what that might mean for their health so that we can make decisions and build systems in place for their health that is directly based off this data. So I'm a huge fan of knowing your numbers when it comes to your health. So let's talk solutions for overbreathing. I'm going to give you 2 solutions to reduce overbreathing so that you can combat anxiety and stress. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll end up wrapping up with that third hack that I told you about that really helped me keep my emotions in check during a charged night last night. Okay, solution number 1 to reduce overbreathing is to become a nose breather. Most people don't even know that this is a thing to know about. Becoming a nose breather means at rest, when you are not intensely exercising, you breathe through your nose, right? And the reason breathing through your nose is so important is not only does it oxygenate your brain, remember, this is a good thing. Oxygen to the brain is good. It helps with energy. It helps with clarity. It helps with eliminating brain fog and focus. It's fascinating. I'll get into this in a sec, but your brain's ability to recover depends on if it can get oxygen or not, right? And when you breathe through your nose, if you think breathe in, breathe out, there is more resistance when you breathe through your nose, through your mouth. This allows your nose to filter any bacteria out that's coming in through the air. It warms it and brings it into your body. And on top of that, you get more oxygen in, right? So we want to be nose breathing. Now, it's interesting. I'm actually in physiotherapy right now for something called TMD, or temporomandibular disorder. You might know it as a TMJ, like when your jaws are clicky or really hard, like tight in the muscles in there. Maybe it's causing tension headaches. And I was definitely a nose breather before, but I have been learning so much more about proper mouth position and nose position. So I'm going to tell you something that I'm teaching you right now that my therapist taught me. So here is how your mouth and your breathing should be when you are at rest. Are you ready for this? Okay, say the letter N. N, but don't move your tongue off the top of your mouth. Okay, so say N. Now keep your tongue there. Now, put the rest of your tongue along the roof of your mouth. Now, there should be a little bit of open space between your teeth. Now, close your lips. This is how you nose breathe. You say N, tongue along the top of your mouth, gap between the teeth, close the lips. Breathe through the nose. We want to be breathing like this all of the time unless we are vigorously exercising. Now, if you are mouth breathing, this is something that you're going to have to pay attention to. And for me, what I was doing and what we found in this physiotherapy was I was what's called cramming. Yeah, I think it's called cramming. When you cram your tongue against the top of your mouth, and guarding, meaning clenching with open teeth. I mean, some people grind their teeth, some people clench them together. Honestly, if you have issues with your face, your jaw, and your neck, go and seek out someone who specializes in this. I've been learning so much about my poor jaw that I have neglected my whole life. I mean, so much of our overwhelm and stress is stored in the jaws. I think my therapist said 80% of jaw and neck related issues are stored nervous system tension, which is not great, right? So I'm combining like an approach like this with a lot of the psychological approaches and the somatic approaches and the feeling approaches. Like I'm doing this. It's an interesting journey. I'll share about it a bit more when I'm done. But point being, you now know how to hold your mouth. You want to make sure that you are breathing regularly. So it might be kind of neat to have a little alarm on your phone, a note on your desktop, something to remind you, okay, put my tongue back in the right place, open the teeth, just resting open, close the lips, breathe. Now, mouth breathing actually becomes a bit more of a problem is in sleep. So chances are if you snore or your partner snores, there is a very good chance you may be mouth breathing while you sleep. This results in a lack of oxygen delivery to your brain. And if you are one of those people where your partner has been told you snore, or you consistently wake up foggy, or like you haven't fully recovered and your brain feels funny, you may actually be mouth breathing while you sleep and not allowing your brain the amount of oxygen that you need. Now, here is what you can do for this. You can practice something called mouth taping. And if you've never heard of mouth taping before, you're going to be like, Tanessa, what are you talking about? I'm not taping my mouth. But it's like, when you go down those rabbit holes on YouTube or whatever, you find out about something and then it's like actually this huge thing and you'd never heard about it before. Yeah, that's mouth taping. It's really big in the biohacking community, especially. Particularly, we're looking at making sure that you have tape over your mouth so you are not breathing while you sleep. Through your mouth, you want to breathe, but just not through your mouth, right? Because if you are snoring and you're not breathing through your mouth, there is also a link to snoring and what is called sleep apnea. Now, sleep apnea is a condition in which your brain does not create the proper breathing response and you don't breathe properly at night. So there will be periods of time where you just stop breathing and then you start up again. And that can have a whole host of benefits at cardiovascular disease, all kinds of things. It's actually quite serious. If you have undiagnosed sleep apnea, it's something definitely to take seriously. But mouth taping, we're not talking about sleep apnea, but just something if you mouth breathe, you always wake up tired, you snore heavily, it might be worth investigating if sleep apnea is something that you actually are dealing with, because there are solutions for that. There is a company that I have found through my biohacking research, and just Google myotape, MYO tape, And they have created this type of mouth tape that allows you to still open your mouth and talk if you need to. So basically, it's a type of tape that has a slit where your mouth can open, but what the tape is designed to do is pull your lips very tight. So like imagine this, you put one hand on each cheek and pull your mouth open sideways. This is what this tape does, is it stretches it so that it stays closed. And then of course you have the gaps, you can still open your mouth and talk. So this is definitely something that is going to help you reduce overbreathing, because like I said, when you have to breathe through the nose, it adds resistance, right? It's a narrower tube, so it naturally slows your breathing down on top of all the other benefits that we've talked about. So this is a super easy one. Do it right now. Say your N, tongue on the top of your mouth, slightly open teeth, close your mouth, breathe through your nose, all right? And you want to be breathing through your nose, like I said, all of the time, unless you are in intense exercise. Like I've even seen people online tape their mouth during mild to moderate exercise as a way of training their lungs. Pretty cool, right? So that's solution number 1 to overbreathing. Hey, here's something you don't want to miss. Have you ever felt that mid-morning or afternoon slump? Well, you can say goodbye to that with my Entrepreneur's Guide to 12 Energy Boosting Hacks. In this free playbook, you're going to discover proven strategies that top leaders swear by. I even had someone email me about how annoying it was that everything actually worked because now they couldn't stop. This free playbook might be just the game changer you need. Grab it in the show notes. It's called 12 Ways to Biohack Your Energy. Solution number 2 is we need to get better at controlling our diaphragm. Now, the diaphragm is a big muscle that is located at the bottom of our ribs. And when this muscle contracts, it allows air to rush into our lungs. All right, so this is the breathing muscle. It is so important. And normally when we breathe, like let's say we are doing 12 breaths, we would take a breath in, take a breath out, and pause at the bottom. Take a breath in, take a breath out, pause at the bottom. But what ends up happening is because we start to breathe more rapidly, we don't do this pause at the bottom. So this pause actually helps us to slow down. Now, what we're going to talk about is a couple of methods to make sure we're also breathing properly and things to help us control this diaphragm. Now, if you're driving, don't do this, but if you're walking or maybe you are sitting down somewhere, put your hands on your stomach, okay? Now, what I want you to do is inhale, but push your stomach out while you breathe. So inhale, you should feel your stomach expand, maybe your rib cage expand, and as you exhale, your stomach returns back in, your ribs contract back down. This is proper breathing, right? We want to be breathing with our stomach. If someone asks you to take a big breath and your shoulders move, your shoulders are not supposed to be involved in breathing. We want it to be from our stomach. A fun little hack that I heard that you can do, if you take a piece of string and you tie it around your stomach while you're sitting at your desk, like don't tie it tight, just tie it comfortably. What this can do is cue you to breathe, because as you breathe, you should naturally inhale, push out against the string, and then exhale, it loosens on the string again. So this is a really good cue if you want to be sitting at your desk and practice breathing. Okay, so first we need to make sure we're breathing properly, because if you are breathing with your stomach, that is practice controlling your diaphragm. So you inhale, diaphragm contracts, pulls down, stomach comes out. Exhale, diaphragm relaxes, stomach comes in, oxygen exits your body. Okay, so that's number 1. The second way you can practice diaphragmatic control is with something called box breathing. Now, have you heard of box breathing before? It's common, so you might know what I'm talking about after I describe it. Now, imagine, if you haven't heard about it, I'm going to make sure I describe it for you. I want you to picture a square, okay? Something with 4 even sides on it. Now, box breathing would follow this, what looks like a box in front of you. So you have the left side of the box that goes up, it goes across the top, down the right side, across the bottom. I want you to picture this. Box breathing is breathing in equal patterns on each side of the box. So think about this. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going up the left side of the box. You're going to hold your breath at the top for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, and along the bottom of the box, hold the bottom of the breath. So you're basically, every quarter of the breath is held for the same amount of time. So it's the inhale, the hold at the top, the exhale, the hold at the bottom. Box breathing is wonderful for helping you establish diaphragmatic control. And this can be done in as little as 2 to 3 minutes of practice of box breathing 1 to 2 times a week. And this is something, honestly, I like doing this in the car. It's something I'm driving, I'm not doing anything anyways. I could totally make use of this. So what if you added this simple practice of 2 to 3 minutes of box breathing 1 to 2 times a week to help improve your diaphragmatic control? And what it helps you do is learn to increase your carbon dioxide discard rate. New term. So we talked about carbon dioxide. That's the waste product that your body makes after it turns oxygen into energy, right? The discard rate is how long it takes you to blow off that carbon dioxide, right? Because this diaphragmatic control, this box breathing will translate to less over breathing when you are at rest, right? And you'll likely see improvements during exercise as well, and reduced anxiety, right? So we want to make sure we're getting that oxygen and we're not over breathing. Now we're going to do something kind of fun together. We're going to do something right now called a carbon dioxide tolerance test. And we are going to be using this test to measure your discard rate. And this is going to have to do with box breathing. So hang with me, do this test, and then you're going to see how this all integrates and how you can personalize your box breathing routine, so to speak. Okay, so I'm going to have you right now, if you're not already, start breathing normally through your nose. Now, this will not work if you're on a walk or something like this or on the treadmill, so just remember it and come back to it. But this will work well if you're at rest. So let's breathe normally through your nose, right? Breathe normally. I'm going to give you about 5 seconds just to regulate your breathing, paying attention to it. So keep breathing while I explain this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to maximally inhale through your nose as deep as you can. And at the top of that inhale, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a timer. And I am going to have you exhale as slowly as possible through your mouth. Okay? I want you to stretch that exhale out for as long as possible. If you want to be relaxed while you're doing it, close your eyes. This can help with that. I don't want you holding your breath. You need to be consistently exhaling for the entire time. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving you time markers every, let's say 5 seconds to tell you where you are. And when you run out of air, we would stop the timer. Or in this case, let's say I say like 30 seconds and you run out of air. I need you to remember 30 seconds. That's when you ran out of air. Okay. So you're going to stop your time when your air runs out or you need to inhale. Okay. So like you're at the very bottom of your breath. Okay. Breathing out as slow as you can. Are you ready? Okay. I want you to start inhaling normally. I'm going to give you a couple seconds again. Okay. I'm going to count you down and you're going to do a maximal inhale on 3, 2, 1, breathe in, breathe in, breathe in, breathe in as deep as you can and go. You're going to start exhaling through your mouth consistently, but as slowly as you can. Okay. You have just approached 10 seconds, 15. So remember, as soon as you run out of air, remember the time. 20. If you run out of air somewhere between my timers, 25, then you can just use an approximate number in the middle. 30. We are going to be going up to a minute. 35. You are 40 seconds in. 45 seconds in. You are 50 seconds in. 55 seconds. And that is a minute. If you are still going, redo this test later and actually get your time. But most people will be done by that. Okay. So you have your time in your head, right? When I redid this test this morning, I got to 30 seconds of exhale before I ran out of breath. Okay. So what we're going to do is I am going to be giving you a score. Okay. So remember your score. If you ran out of air in less than 25 seconds, so you were out by 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 25, whatever that is, I want you to remember the score 3. If you ran out of air somewhere between 25 and 50 seconds, I want you to remember the score 5 to 6. Maybe if you got like 25 or 30, you'd give yourself a 5. And if you got yourself somewhere like 40, 45, 50, you might give yourself a 6, right? So kind of use your discretion. If you got 50 seconds or more, your score is 8 to 10. Like if you just made it to 50, maybe scored an 8. If you could make it much longer, your score is a 10. Now, here is how to interpret your results. And I want you to keep in mind while I'm saying this first that this score has very little to do with your fitness level. There are elite level athletes that have low carbon dioxide discard rates. So it has nothing to do with your fitness level. So just be neutral to these results. All right. So here's how to interpret your results. Remember, you had less than 25 seconds to exhale, score of 3, 25 to 50 was 55 to 6. And 50 seconds or more was a score of 8 to 10. So if you can exhale 80 seconds or longer, this is considered elite. You have excellent breathing and stress control. If you ran out of air somewhere between 60 and 80 seconds, this is considered advanced. Good breathing control, relatively good stress control. Intermediate generally improves quickly with focus on carbon dioxide tolerance training, so it's really good. If you're in that 20 to 40 second, you are average. You have moderate to high stress anxiety state. Breathing mechanics need improvement, and less than 20 seconds is considered poor or very high anxiety and stress sensitivity. Mechanical restriction possible, like maybe you're not breathing properly, or poor lung capacity. Now, I fell at 30 seconds, which is bang on in the middle of average. And I could definitely see that. My body has been subjected to anxiety for a long time and overwhelmed. So this makes sense to me. But what we're going to do is, now that you kind of understand that, we're going to take the score you gave yourself. Remember, it was 3, 5 to 6, or 8 to 10. And this is going to be your carbon dioxide discard rate. Now, how does this relate to box breathing? So your score, whether it was 3, or 5 to 6, or 8 to 10, is how long in seconds each side of your box should be. So I'm going to use my example. I scored 30 seconds. So I gave myself a score of 5. This means my box sides are 5 seconds long on my breathing. So I inhale for 5 seconds. I hold at the top for 5 seconds. I exhale for 5 seconds. I hold at the bottom for 5 seconds. Does this make sense? And I'm going to tell you, when I have been to cognitive behavioral therapy, I have done outpatient programs in the hospital for anxiety, and I was taught that box breathing is 8 seconds on each side. But think about this. I have a lower carbon dioxide discard rate, right? My score was lower. It should be 5 seconds per side. I always hated box breathing before because I felt completely panicky because 8 seconds of not breathing at the top and the bottom was so physically uncomfortable that it would make me anxious. If you have ever had bad experiences with box breathing, I am curious if perhaps you were told to breathe longer or shorter on each side of the box than what works for you. So now I do my box breathing, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, right? And this is a way to help with your diaphragmatic control. So what you want to be doing is come back to this episode and repeat this tolerance test about 1 to 2 weeks after you have done the practice. And remember, we decided practice was going to be you do box breathing at your specific interval 1 to 2 times a week to help improve that diaphragmatic control. Okay. So once you practice for 1 to 2 weeks, you want to see if you can start increasing the duration of the hold on each side. So if I'm doing 5, 5, 5, 5, I would want to progress to 6, 6, 6, 6, right? And progress ultimately leads to less frequent breaths because you are comfortable holding the exhale at the bottom and healthier breathing patterns. This is fantastic. We want to be able to have nice, slow, relaxed breathing. Remember, we're going for that 12 breaths per minute and to help us combat stress and anxiety. So I have given you 2 breathing hacks so far. One has been nose breathing, and the second has been how to assess if you are box breathing properly, and then the frequency to do that to help you really get control of your diaphragm so that you can pause at the bottom of the exhales. Super cool, right? All right. So what we're looking at now is we are going into our final strategy. This is going to be the strategy that I told you about at the beginning of the episode, that I was able to calm my body back down. I think of this as a real-time strategy in the moment when you are experiencing intense anxiety. This helps. Another time that I actually use this, I went in for a medical test in January. I think it was January. And it was something that was going to cause a decent amount of pain in office, but I had to go in for this procedure and I was so nervous about it. But I did this breathing technique and calmed myself. And I think it helped with my pain response too. I told this to clients. They love it. I love it. What is it? It is the cyclical sigh or the physiological sigh. I've heard it called both. I sometimes use them interchangeably. For the purpose of our discussion today, I'm going to call it the physiological sigh. So have you ever heard a child cry and they do something like this when they're winding down? Right? We know what I'm talking about, right? That it's a reflex. It's a reflex that our nervous system does to help us slow down our heart rate. And this strategy helps you shift your autonomic nervous system from fight or flight, from feeling anxious and like set off adrenaline and elevated arousal and agitation. And it helps you shift it towards a feeling of calm and in control and relaxation. I love this strategy. Okay, so here's what it's going to be. Through your nose, you are going to maximally inhale as deep as you can. Then at the top of that inhale, you are going to force inhale a little bit more air. And then you are going to, as slow as possible, exhale through your mouth as long as you can. I'm going to demonstrate that audibly, and it sounds like this. So inhale through my nose. Little more inhale at the top. And long exhale through the mouth. And as long as I can. And the cool thing is, the reason for that little pop inhale at the top is because it forces air deeper and causes the little air sacs on the bottom of our lungs to expand a little bit more. Because when we shallow breathe a lot, those bottom air sacs don't inflate the way they used to. And this is another reason for that shallowness of breathing. So this helps us expand those, right? And then you want to exhale as long as you can. Now, the reason this works so well is I thought this was fantastic. When you breathe in, you get a mild uptick in heart rate. So meaning your heart rate increases when you breathe in and it decreases when you breathe out. Increase, breathe in, decrease, breathe out. When you are panicking or in an anxious state, you want to lower your heart rate. So what this breathing style does is it's a rapid inhale followed by an extended slow exhale through the mouth, and it is meant to calm your nervous system. Now, you are able, in as little as 2 to 3 breaths, start being able to calm the nervous system so that your thinking mind can come back online and it can help disengage fight or flight. Honestly, sometimes it takes a couple minutes of doing this, but this is an absolutely fantastic tool to have in your toolbox. And I use it, like I said, I use it all of the time. So I'm going to give you one more way to make this physiological sigh a little more applicable. You obviously can do it in the moment, but one thing that I experimented with over the last year based on a research study that neuroscientist Andrew Huberman discussed on one of his podcast episodes, I have actually put this 5-minute practice into play, and it was awesome. So the study that was described on this podcast that I listened to compared 3 different breathing styles with meditation. So the 3 different breathing styles were Wim Hof breathing. If you've ever heard of that, it's a type of breathing in which you purposefully breathe off a lot of carbon dioxide. It's actually meant to boost stress in the body. It's a hormetic stressor, meaning you stress the body on purpose and it makes you more resilient, more stronger, able to handle stress, but it definitely jacks your nervous system up. So they compared that one. They compared box breathing, which we talked about, and they compared this physiological sigh, and they also compared meditation. So they had groups doing each group did one of these for 5 minutes every day. And there was one particular strategy that had a noticeable, profound effect on decreasing resting heart rate. It increased heart rate variability. Now, both of those together, decreased heart rate and increased heart rate variability, are a sign that your body is lower in stress, right? And the other thing it did was it decreased perceived stress 24 hours around the clock. Can you guess which one it was? Well, it was the cyclical sigh, or that physiological sigh, that double inhale, exhale, that done consecutively for 5 minutes daily over the span of a month showed remarkable improvement in stress. And so if you are one of those people that wake up first thing in the morning and your nervous system goes instantly to fight or flight, you could put 5 minutes of this physiological sigh in that block of time right when you wake up. If you are one of those people who wake up in the middle of the night, I use this physiological sigh to put myself back to sleep. If I'm woken up and like my heart rate's going and your nervous system is on. And the other time that I use it, and this is when I use it most, is if I have a night where my nervous system is flooded with adrenaline, I will use it before I go to bed. And so I will do 5 minutes before I go to bed. And if you have an Oura ring, there's actually a neat little feature currently, as of when I'm recording this, summer 2024, if you hit on the main screen the plus side on the bottom right corner, and you can click unguided session. And what you can actually do is set it up so that it has a 5-minute meditation timer built in for you. You do this physiological sigh, and it will give you your heart rate and your heart rate variability and how they changed over that 5-minute breathing session. So you actually get live feedback on if this stress reducing approach, this breath work, actually lowered your experience of stress and your heart rate and improved your heart rate variability. So what are the big takeaways that I want you to walk away from with this podcast today? Well, number one is that anxiety and stress, we can combat that with better breathing, making sure we aren't over breathing, breathing nice and slow, breathing through our nose, taking pauses at the bottom of our breath, and using that physiological sigh as a way of lowering in the moment anxiety and stress. Now, I'm sure there are dozens of other breathwork biohacks and combos that you could do, but like I said, I'm not a breathwork expert. What I am is an entrepreneur and a mom with an ever-changing life, doing these real life things that I have learned out from people in the science community, the biohacking community, the neuroscience community, all designed to help my nervous system. And if that's not going to help me in my business, I don't know what will. So I hope this episode has been as helpful for you as it is for me. If you learned something new, can you share this episode with a friend, or maybe add it to your Instagram stories and tag me at Tanessa Shears? I always love to see where you're listening from. Are you on a walk? Are you folding laundry? Are you in the car? Share this with me. I love to see it. And if you got value out of this episode, if you could leave a rating and review on either Spotify or iTunes, you don't even know how valuable this is to me. I pop in there every once in a while and read, and it's such a heartwarming feeling for a creator, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, you understand this feeling of the value of having someone say, you helped me. This was informative. I loved this episode. So if you could take 30 seconds and leave a rating or a review, I would be really grateful. And I know that all the podcasters say this, but it's true. More ratings and reviews means this podcast reaches more entrepreneurs just like you and helps me keep everything I'm doing going. It helps keep new eyes and ears coming into the podcast. But I hope you have a beautiful week, and I will talk to you next time. Bye. Hey, if you love listening to this podcast, then you have to come check out my coaching program, Becoming Limitless. Together, we'll build a sustainable system for your health that is based in science and data that fits seamlessly into your busy schedule. Join me over at TanessaShears.com/becoming limitless. I'll see you there.